I'm not sure how many we have in just yet. One moment. Okay, perfect. So I can see the participants loading up. So we'll just give you all a couple more minutes to make sure everyone has time to get in and get comfortable. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes before we kick into it. Okay, so we're up to 25. So people still getting in? Suppose while we are waiting, I suppose if you want to maybe drop us a line in the chat. I know we've people tuning in from all over Europe and different parts of the world. So maybe let's try and keep this as interactive as possible. If you want to let us know where you're tuning in from, maybe the name of the company or your role or whatever you feel comfortable sharing would be great to get us started. Hello, we're tuning in from Dublin. Very nice, close to home. I'll just wait one more minute. I suppose a question to our speakers today. How is everyone else doing? Portugal. Oh,
wonderful.
Excited for what's ahead?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great topic.
Absolutely. Pity we only have 45 minutes. I think it's something we could spend hours and hours speaking about, but we will keep to all the important stuff today, I suppose. Perfect. Well, look, we are a couple of minutes in. I know time is precious, and we don't want to be keeping people too long. So maybe just wait one more minute. We'll kick into it, and we will get going from that. So just give one last minute for everyone to get in. 30 people in the room. So we've Dublin, Portugal, and Sweden. Perfect. So look, I think running the risk of leaving it too long and then running out of time at the end. I'm sure people will be able to catch up once they get in. So I suppose a little introduction. My name is Philip, working over at Personio. I'm going to be your host and moderator for today. I am looking after one of our SDR teams over here as a team lead. So conversation has been flowing around Personio anyway, around quiet quitting, and a topic that's become really popular. Please do type in the chat today if you have any questions. We'd love to keep this as interactive as possible. We've got some really, really great speakers here with us today, so it'd be great to fire your questions at them, and we will answer them as we go through the session. But look, I'm sure none of you have tuned in to listen to me talk away, unless my mum has signed up for the webinar, which I don't think has happened. So I will quickly go over to our three speakers for the day. If you want to give us a quick introduction, folks, tell us where you're working, and then maybe a little bit about yourself and your role. Saku, you're the first person popping up on my screen here, if you want to lead us away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I was thinking about ladies first, but I'm fine to start. So welcome everybody here. My name is Saku. I am a co-founder of TalentAdore. It's a company that was founded roughly 8 years ago. We do everything in order to bring the human touch back to the recruitment or increase it in the recruitment. So we solve the issues is that many companies handle 100 candidates out of the 100 candidates, maybe they hire one or two, and in the worst case, they have 99 out of 100 not liking the company after the process. So how do we make sure that also those who are not selected, the silver medalists, bronze medalists, and others are happy about the process and learn about it? So this is like the focus, and I'm very excited to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saku. Looking forward to hearing from you today. Susanna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susanna, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of employer branding agency Emine. And we are celebrating our 10th anniversary in a month's time. And we help companies to build a magnetic employer brand.
Nice. Excellent. Sure. No better person to get a few insights around the topic today. And last but definitely not least, Izzy, good morning.
Morning. Hello, everybody. Izzy, also known as Isabelli, if you prefer, an employer brand strategist working at Personio. Over the past few years, I worked in different segments of HR, and now with my background in marketing and psychology, I'm focused on really helping Personio craft a strong employer brand and communicating that both to employees and candidates alike.
Excellent.
Alrighty.
Brilliant. Well, look, we all know today the topic of the discussion is quiet quitting. And again, I think like most trends or most current topics nowadays, it's something that was created from TikTok and has completely gone viral since. And really, in a nutshell, it's around not buying into that hustle culture. So we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper now today, and obviously have a good conversation around it. But I suppose if you want to kick us off, Susanna, what is quiet quitting to you?
Well, quiet quitting is actually a positive thing, I believe. It's kind of like a phenomenon, I guess we could say right now, because of the viral from TikTok. And it's about getting a better, not even a better balance in life, but just in general, I would describe it as a way to organize structure your life in a way that you can live a better life, where work is no longer, even if you're ambitious and you want to succeed in your career, you still want to make sure that your life doesn't revolve around work, but work helps you to fulfill your ambitions and your self-actualize, if you want, but in a really good sort of setup and structure together with your personal life.
Yep. And what about for you, Izzy?
I can see two sides of it. I think there's definitely a positive one, which is the one that Susanna just spoke to, which is people setting boundaries and having an understanding that life is more than just work. There is this common saying of, you work to live, not the reverse. However, I do also see the opposite, which is where people will do the bare minimum just so they will still perform their jobs. However, they won't go above and beyond, as it's said in HR. And I believe that this comes from a place of self-protection, so just avoiding burnout. So rather than setting the priorities and understanding boundaries, people will go into this mode of quiet quitting, because they understand that this is the best way to protect their own mental and holistic health. But Saku, what do you also think?
Yeah, I would add to what you said already, is that when people think about the quiet quitting or the work-life balance, they often refer and maybe thinking about that, how many hours of time am I putting to my work? And in there, often, the balance can be felt overloading, but it's another aspect to that is to think that, okay, what do I do with those hours that I'm putting to the work? Because sometimes with 6 hours, you can achieve much more than sometimes in 10 hours. So it's, the balance of life, of course, it feels if majority of my wake up time is going to the work, but if you actually start qualifying, is that how valuable is the time that I'm doing, and how well am I going to make an impact of with what I'm doing. And you can adjust it for the clarity. Impact can be done at any work. There's not like some work that can be more impactful than the other. It can be, you can consider it as meaningful, even when it sometimes can be very repetitive work, or so it doesn't have to be a knowledge-based industry or anything like that to feel meaningful. And I believe that when the people are questioning the meaningfulness of the work, and in this post-COVID world where we are no longer meeting with other people, so the meaningfulness is disappearing maybe from the bottom of their list that people are feeling, and that could lead then some decisions or thinking of this quiet quitting theme is that, well, if my work is not meaningful, I shouldn't go beyond that bare minimum, as ECU mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. I think all good points, and I suppose something that this goes to any of the three of you. I suppose why has it become such a big trend all of a sudden? I know obviously it's come from TikTok, which you know makes things blow up in you know a matter of minutes and you know hours. But why all of a sudden is it such a big thing, and why do you feel it's gotten so important for people? Susanna, I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, I think it's probably because of the pandemic years. As a consultant, I saw a lot of employees and leaders also feeling mentally and emotionally really torn because of the you know how the pandemic just kind of took us over, and everything changed so significantly, and we were not prepared for it. None of us were prepared for it, and because it took such a long time, the sort of the separation from others and the lack of social context at work, that it really hurt us, you know, mentally. And I think that we're probably living a kind of an era now where, you know, people just want to feel better in general, want to kind of heal from those last couple of years, and the sort of the burden that it created. And I think that the priority is now on how can I organize the new work life for myself or for my team, or you know how whatever the context is. So I believe that it probably has a lot to do with those couple of years. And you know, we've seen work life going through various trends and really significant transformation anyway over the past decade. So I think in a way, even though this has been really hard on all of us, I think it's a really good change. And right now probably feels hard, but I think that what will deliver to us and how it will transform work life is probably going to be really good.
Yeah, definitely. Saku, Izzy, what about yourselves?
I see similarly to Susanna. Sorry, was somebody saying something? Okay, anyway, so I see similarly to Susanna on this thing, and maybe I would add on top of it is that also we are living in the world where, you know, all these social media interactions with people, it is rewarding and triggering us instant rewards in terms of like dopamine is just one example, is that somebody's giving you a thumb up, so you get an instant reward. So people are getting used to that and are seeking shorter term rewards than maybe longer term rewards. So the trend going towards that is meaning that people may have reduced patience towards these longer term successes, and feeling of the fulfillment often is not happening instantaneously at work. It takes time to get results, and when you at the same time have the distance between yourself and the social distance, social context, as Susanna was saying, with the other people, so the connection is kind of a reduced, so it is amplifying the feeling of lack of fulfillment. in that working context, and you don't get instant rewards maybe in the same way that when you were dealing with people in the office. You may have a great conversation, because most of the great conversations are not those that you talk about in a meeting that is set up with a set up agenda, but it is on the hallway, it's on the corridor, it's in places where you just accidentally, maybe I meet Susanna accidentally on the street here in Helsinki or somewhere else, and that conversation can be very fulfilling for me. But I won't have that if I haven't Teams or Zoom or similar online meeting with Susanna with a set agenda.
Yeah.
It's true.
Definitely. So it's obviously down to the likes of Zoom. It's that you know, those spontaneous catch-ups that you may have with someone, and you know, the whole I suppose online interaction and Zoom and things like that. It's very structured, and there needs to be a agenda almost to have a conversation. Yeah, definitely agree. Izzy, what about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with all, and I think there's another aspect as well. So for sure, the pandemic has impacted how people see and relate to work, and there's also the factor that a lot of the younger generation actually started working during this period, where for a lot of people they're working from home, so there already begins that whole conversation of what are people's expectations around work. Does working from 9 to 5 mean that I have to be at the office the whole time? Well, that was not the case for the majority of the people throughout the pandemic. And then in working from home and comes flexibility, comes the prioritization of your own health, of, you know, having a social life alongside work. And I think that also plays into this now trend that has become popularized through, you know, TikTok, which is quiet quitting.
Yeah, and we've a good question coming through here, and happy for anyone to jump on this. So I know it's probably more challenging. I know when we look at the modern workplace now, and obviously being remote is a part of it, and you know, hybrid workplaces, but how do you best identify a quiet quitter?
That's a really good question. I can say for sure that we don't really know yet. But if you really think about it, that a quiet quitter probably is someone who you've recognized earlier to be really hardworking and spending a lot of hours at work and sort of very active at the workplace, whatever is going on. And then if you see this person sort of spending less hours in sort of extra activities at work, or not so eager to participate on extra projects anymore, and you see them even, you know, starting new hobbies outside the work, I guess that's the first sign that somebody is restructuring their, you know, their personal life in a way that they are spending less time at work and more time, you know, doing other stuff. And of course, then we always have people who tell you that, you know, I need a change in my job. I'm no longer satisfied spending this much time at work, and I need a change. Could be that also. I've heard about that as well. So, but I don't think that there's any sort of a clear indication to what the profile of a quiet quitter really is. Because I think we have to remember that a quiet quitting is not a negative thing. This is not people who are exiting your workplace. They could be very, very motivated to do their job. They just want to cut down the hours, the sort of over excess hours, or the extra sort of things that they participate in order to, you know, take a break and spend time outside the work.
Yeah, I think that tying back to what Saku said before as well, you can, I agree with Susanna too, that there's no such a thing as a profile, you know, where you can identify a quiet quitter. But once you start tuning into what people are saying, you know, in those informal conversations, you also get a feeling. So even on the idea of somebody who used to do a lot and now not so much. Or let's say you were at a meeting, there was a discussion going on, you then have a one-to-one with one of those people, and you realize they have lots of opinions, you know, they want to share, they definitely have a vision, but they weren't participating during that meeting. And then you start to understand that that person in a way has given up. Maybe it's not worth putting the extra hours, you know, maybe they're just protecting themselves. They're looking at it in a way that I could be spending all these minutes trying to fight for an idea, trying to go above and beyond with this project, but actually I have other priorities, I have certain boundaries, and I'm going to prioritize what I need to get done this week, or, you know. So there are definitely ways to identify it, but they're just subtle, I would say.
Yeah. Saku, I'll leave this
Yes,
up.
easy. So taking from what the two of you said is, you know, this is coming back to my earlier talk about the hours, is that as long as the mentality is about that there's a certain amount of hours that people are expected to spend in one place, no matter what the situation is, I think this is one of the triggering mentality that may make people think that this worth it. And I would really go towards more about the meaningfuls of the hours spent and what the impact that you feel when you work. But what you both raised is that people are very good at detecting differences in life. So it's like if you're in a cold weather, you go home and you wash your hands with a normal temperature of water. So you feel it can be very hot. It doesn't burn your hand, but it feels hot. So people are very good at detecting differences. So I think that is one of a predictor of that something is changing here, even if the person doesn't say it. And when it comes to our company's thing, which is about recruiting, so if you find a candidate that has like a consistent line of short-term employments, so there's like an indicator that the person, whenever there's the first kind of a challenging thing in the company, maybe it's every 6 months or every company, you know, bad things will happen. It will happen to all of our companies sometimes, and we will deal with them. The question is that is people walking away from such opportunities to learn, which often challenges are, or are they actually fighting and getting the experience? That could be one parameter to think about. We now also see sometimes candidates are often nowadays, much more than before, when talking to them, they may sometimes say that I left the company because it wasn't in line with my values. And that's kind of very vague, because everybody could actually say that as a reason of leaving any company. It is not in line with my values. Then, of course, I would be curious to understand what those values are and where the actual conflict is. But that could be one hint of that, okay, my values changed. Maybe I was there 5 years and the company no longer is in line with my values. So I would, in those instances, I would really dig deeper and understand what those values are. Maybe we can offer those values, or maybe we cannot offer those values. But that's at least you asked about the indicators. It's a kind of an indicator to dig deeper.
But do you think, Saku, that that if people are leaving the company, or that they have very short-term employments, that they are equivalent to the quiet quitter profile, even though we said there isn't a profile? Or are they just leavers in general, people who are not motivated to commit for more than the honeymoon? What do you say? Because I think these are different things.
Yeah, this can be any one of those, but then the principal question in this was that how do you identify the quiet quitter? So if I see those in the profile, I would also try to understand that what is in the background of this. Because also quitting, in the sense is, of course, quiet quitting is that you stay in the company and you do the bare minimum, but that would at least give me something to identify that what type of employment the person is actually now looking for, and what are the learnings from the past employments, and why should this be any different? But I get your point. So yeah, it is not necessarily 100% identifier of a quiet quitter at all.
But I actually was thinking that I've seen a lot of, and this is another sort of way to identify, recently, there seems to be a lot of discussion on LinkedIn, on my feed, people talking about that, saying that you're busy at work. If somebody asks you how you're doing, how's work, and responding that I'm busy, that's no longer, like a positive answer. That people think that the sort of the trend is now that people don't want to be that busy, and if you say that you're very busy, it's like a negative reflection of your abilities to manage your work and manage your time and so on. And I see that there's a lot of people talking about, the busy lives, too busy lives and stuff like that. So maybe if as an employer, you are connected to your employees on LinkedIn, for example, on other social media, and you see what they're posting and talking about, what kind of topics they're bringing up, how they voice these kind of sort of issues that are to do with the quiet quitting trend, which is about kind of downsizing the amount of work that you're doing and focusing on the core tasks, which is obviously, like Saku said earlier, which is a good thing. So I think that's maybe also another way of identifying the potential quiet quitters among those people who obviously are active on social media, but then,
Yeah, and I think that the usual surveys, employee surveys, also do work, and they work even better if companies are able to do it from the beginning of someone's journey. So from when they're still a candidate up until when that person leaves, so that you get a good picture of what the perception of the company is before someone joins, at the point at which they join. Then after they join, you have this moment of truth, right? As they say in marketing, where you discover whether what people promised on the external world is actually what goes on inside the company. And as you measure all these data points across the journey, and there are different listening strategies that you could do. Some companies opt in for those really, really long surveys where you ask people 100 questions, and by the end of it, you can't even remember what you said at the beginning. But there are others where they're short and snappy, but they're also targeted to understand how people are feeling, across their experience. Because in my own perception, that is what work has become nowadays. It's an experience. People go over and choose to work for an employer, not only for the economic benefit that you get from it, but also so that you have the opportunity to learn and develop. And alongside it, you develop a lot of social networks. You just develop as a human being. And us in HR, I believe it's our job to listen, whether it's through qualitative or quantitative data, and understand how people are feeling, and then adjusting our own offerings to make sure that we're delivering as a business, but also that the people that we have on board are being listened to, and the things that we're doing actually add value to their lives.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Isi, I would like to add that a little bit, is that I fully agree. It is a journey with a company, but I would also maybe highlight that we could even call it, rather than journey, we could call it with the word experience. Well, experiences for different people are very different. So Susanna and Isi, you both have different experiences when you work. But what is the experience that the person is actually looking for? And people are no longer looking for necessarily an experience that is clock in, clock out, fulfilling some hours. The experience is also other elements there, maybe even increasingly, is that, is this the experience I want to have? Because I'm conscious now that more than half of my wake-up time is spent at work. So on top of that, salary, as pointed out, is maybe not that crucial. It's of course important, is to also think through, is this experience the one that I want to see compared to the investment, which is my free time and my learning, what I want to get? Am I getting kind of a compensated, and is the experience actually putting it up, or is it taking me down?
Yeah, and I think this is...
Yeah.
Sorry, Susanna, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
I think this works perfectly, you know, with the concept of the EVP, the employer value proposition. So yes, work is an experience, and it may be true that people don't want to clock in, clock out. But if that's true for your business, then I believe it's on us, you know, HR professionals, employer brand professionals, to make sure that we're making that promise very clear on our websites, on our communication channels, wherever that touch point is across somebody's, you know, journey, that if we are the sort of business where you expect people to clock in and clock out, that we say that. If we are in a phase of a business where, let's say, we're growing a lot, we expect people to join and do and go above and beyond, that we also align those expectations. So I tend to think of the employment as a relationship. You know, of course, it's a relationship with the employee and the employer, but really, if we bring it back to the human side of it, it's the relationship that you have with your colleagues and your managers on a day-to-day basis. And I think that as long as you can be truth, you know, to what your values are, and that those are aligned to the company, etc., and that your manager is also clear on what's going on in the bigger picture, as well as what's valuable for the employees on the team, then things are aligned and you're okay. I believe the problem begins when there is a misalignment between what we promise as an employer and then people buy into it versus what happens on a day-to-day, you know? So it's an opportunity for all of us now with this going on to reevaluate what is our proposition? What do we say? What is our promise when we say, come work for us or stay working for us, you know?
Yeah, I think that ties in beautifully to our latest question. And Izzy, I think you must be psychic here. So how do we make sure that we keep our employees engaged so that quiet quitting stops being reality? And I think, Susanna, really interested to hear what you have to say on this. I've seen you described as a pioneer of employee branding. So really interested to kind of hear what you have to say on this.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that why should we think that we need to stop quiet quitting? I don't believe that it's a bad trend at all. It's more about, I think that as an employer, and when we work, and you know, as HR people, as employer branding professionals, I think that we need to be alert of what's going on the marketplace and keep our employment competitive on the market. And if we try to stick to this idea that you know, we need to stop this quiet quitting trend, then I think that we're not looking at this from the angle of what the audience needs and what the audience wants. And if we try to be persistent about that we want to quit this trend, then I think that we're going to be at the losing end. I think this is a really wonderful opportunity for employers to reevaluate how competitive their offer is as a place to work, and how they can match up with what the market you know, wants and what the competition offers. So, and that's very big part of employer branding. And just what Izzy mentioned about that you have to be able to you know, understand what the audience wants to buy, what they want to buy in, because that's what you need to. If the problem in the audience's mind is now that they're investing too much on work and they want to downsize that, they want to have a better life, if we persistently try to sell them a different solution, they're not going to buy it, and we're going to be out of business. So it's the same thing in this this topic, that you know, the question is not how can we stop this. The question is how can we adapt to it.
That's very true. Very true. I'd like to also challenge the whole word quiet quitting, because the person is not quitting, I guess. Yes. Quitting for me means that he's resigning from the company. It's just the person is changing the value system, and the person is either permanently or sometimes doing less. But I see it also, quiet quitting can be me, anyone on this seminar. Sometimes they are unmotivating tasks. So you may quiet quit those tasks. So it can be also temporary state, is that, but when you have this dream project and you see that your lights are kind of sparking and something, you cannot call that on that moment you're quiet quitting. It's like, wow, I want to invest in this because it's a great learning opportunity for me. And there might be other moments where you have a period where it's better for you to do it differently. It's also the same. I remember when I had my kids small. So it's just very important is that you don't have the same abilities to allocate your effort to the work and your maybe your value also in that sense, even before the whole trend like years ago. So maybe I was quiet quitting at that point because I needed to also allocate time to the very small people that really actually need the attention in a different way than today. So I see it. It's a changing thing.
Yeah,
that is so true. And I think it also goes back to something that I don't see many people speaking about. Is so when we're speaking to prospects or people who are still strangers to our company, they don't know, or they may know about the company, but they're not considering it as an employer. Then we're speaking to candidates. So these are people who are already in the consideration stage. They're really going for a position. We tend to target our communications in a way that our conversations will be meaningful so that we can really have them on board. However, once a person joins the company, I have a feeling that we stop targeting our communications as much and we don't realize that within the pool of employees, we actually have different audiences. So again, the job of the employer, branding professionals, I always go back to it, even internally at Personio, saying it's not just focused on attracting people, but retaining them as well, making sure that whatever your communication is to employees, it is meaningful, because what's important for somebody in the engineering department may not be as important for somebody in the people or customer experience department. So how do we also cater to those audiences? And then again, there's also another layer, which is, as you mentioned, a parent. A parent may have been very, very involved in the company before that episode of their lives. However, at this time point, at this moment, their personal lives take over, and this is completely reasonable. So how do we also make sure that as HR, we have the offerings that support people across the different stages of life, not only the life within the company, but their own stages of life in general, because the issue begins when we start to segment, right? And trying to think that work is something completely separate from who we are as people in general. And that just becomes really hard, because is that true? I wonder.
Yes, work is not a sprint; it's a marathon. So you cannot, always just go to the fastest possible speed. And I think you are very spot on this.
yeah. And just, yeah, we have had a question in there. I think it's definitely been covered over the last few minutes around, I suppose, strategies to recommend how we as HR can support leaders, not only to identify, but maybe convert quiet quitters into engaged employees. And I think you've probably all touched on it over the last few minutes around setting expectations and employer branding from the start. But is there anyone who'd like to maybe go a little bit deeper on that, Susanna?
Well, I want to emphasize that quiet quitter is not automatically a disengaged employee. So really, I want you guys to understand it, that it doesn't mean that they're no longer motivated to do their job, or they're not interested or engaged with the work that they do and at the workplace. This is a different, and I think that we really need to change the name for this, because the terminology it's really misleading. So I guess quiet quitter is somebody who is either on the brink of burnout, or just overwork, or is healing from, for example, a burnout or something similar like that. And they just want to cut down the sort of the excess hustle from their daily work and focus on the core of their job to do that really well. And I think that you could kind of compare this to the other trend of, 4-hour or 4-day work weeks or 6-hour work days trend. It's the kind of same that if you work less, you have to cut down on get rid of tasks that are not in your core job. You can't fit it all into less working hours, but it doesn't mean that you're doing your job worse or you're no longer engaged. So it's really important that you guys understand what quiet quitting means and why it's not a bad thing. It actually could be really good for a lot of people and also organizations in terms of like effectiveness and efficiency and innovation and growth to really streamline what you guys spend your time on. And then the question to how can we as HR support leaders in this? I think the main thing is to support our employees so that they can avoid getting burned out. And
very
I think
important,
as HR has,
topics.
So people need healing time or need slowing down when they are feeling overwhelmed and overworked or burned out due to personal reasons, for example. So it's our job as leaders and HR, of course, then to recognize the possible signs of a burnout or like harder times in people's life and then tackle those. We do not have to stop the trend of quiet quitting. I really want to emphasize this is not a bad thing.
Yes, taking a little bit from what you said is first of all, it's good to keep in mind that we cannot reflect broadly, so we can't really have a good lateral thinking if we are in the task-focused world. So I don't think any one of us is really able to have the greatest ideas while at the same time doing task after task after task. Because the best ideas are actually when you are not expecting them. It can be in the shower, it can be when you are walking outside. So actually there's a lot of research behind. There's even some documents published. It's like rest is not idleness. So even if you're in the sofa and kind of looking like almost like sleeping, you might actually still get great innovations. And if your brain doesn't get the time for that, and that's why sometimes this clock in, clock out, I understand there's a lot of stuff there, but maybe also in those areas, you could clock in and clock out and make that experience such that there are also these periods where you can be innovative. You can have rest and take care of it or work less hours. That's also possible because often then outside those hours, you still get ideas.
Yeah, definitely. And just conscious of time, I know we are running out. And as I said at the start, we could probably spend hours and hours talking about it. But what are your key takeaways? What is your biggest thing you'll take away from today? And maybe, tips or tricks to help people out there who, again, I know it's not a negative thing, but how to best help and, support our employees within quiet quitting. So Izzy.
Yeah, I also agree that it doesn't have to be seen as a negative term. It's definitely misleading. I think that as the bottom line is not much has to change in relation to the HR's role. A lot of what we have to do and the tips and tricks, should we say, that I would give are actually the things that are already top of mind for a lot of HR leaders. So making sure that we are supporting people's mental health, mental health and just health in general, making sure that what we're offering them adds value and it's true to what they want, not just to what best practice says we should. Listening to what people are saying, really listening, looking at the data, not just carrying out the survey, but even though it may be hurtful, you know, to see things that you may not like, how does that inform then how you proceed as an organization? And to go back to the quiet quitting term, a lot of it is just about setting boundaries and making sure that your priorities are right. And I think that from a business perspective, where we can support most is making sure that we enable people to focus. We tell them what should be priority, so that they can then bring it back to their own worlds and understand how to prioritize. I think this is a big one, because the minute people start prioritizing everything at the same time, then we don't have a strategy anymore. So one thing leads to the other. Just to conclude, I think we should enable people to prioritize and focus, know where to focus on, and then in tangent, you know, make sure that our offerings also add value to their lives.
Yeah, thank you. Susanna?
Yeah, I mean, Izzy kind of covered a lot of it. I think I would add to this, if this fits with your company culture and values, because you don't want to talk about this as an HR if the organization doesn't deliver. But if this fits your culture and your values, just, you know, talking more openly about the mental and emotional well-being and what kind of support you as an organization and as an employer can give towards it. You know, inspirational stories, how you helped you know, individuals in your organization to get you know, to get to a better place in terms of how to restructure their work. I think that the best tip probably is that, well, one of the best, I don't want to say that this is the best, but one of the most important tips that you can do is to, like Izzy said, talk to your people, survey, get where they are after the pandemic years. Where are they with their, you know, with their emotional and mental well-being and their sort of attitude towards work? Because as many of us have been working solely from home, there was no, it has been like the most effective years of work any one of us has had, because there has been no disruptions whatsoever. But, you know, that also, you know, made us go sort of like over time in our minds. So I think that evaluating this together with the organization is probably something where the HR could start. And then, you know, if your organization feels that you need more sort of support towards this, then, you know, that's where you go. But if they say that they're fine, then, you know, don't have to make a big fuss about it. Just to be aware that in general, in the work, in the market, in the talent market, this is one of the values that is rising, you know, increasing in importance right now. So in terms of like talent acquisition, you may want to consider how your EVB responds to this topic of, you know, not allowing people to, you know, have a good balance in their life.
Yeah.
I have just one sentence to add it, and then conscious of time, is really that typically a person is always on a journey or transitioning from one state of mind to another. There's no permanent state of mind. Do not label anybody as a quiet quitter. It's a state of mind. Maybe it lasts 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 month, 1 year, but it's hardly going to be the defining factor for the rest of anybody's life. That's my recommendation.
So true.
Love it.
So true.
Love it. And last, there was a question through. I'm going to rephrase the question slightly. This is somewhat of a bonus round. So say we have a time machine and we hop back to July before this trend, you know, catches fire and starts to really gain traction. You've the power to change that hashtag or the phrase to have it more accurately represent what we're seeing, because quiet quitting has such negative connotations to it. Give us a more accurate rebranding of what quiet quitting is.
I think it's just a search for better life.
Me too. I think it's just understanding what's priority and, setting boundaries.
Excellent.
Redefining own journey.
Love it. Love it. Well, look, thank you very, very much for all your time today. Thank you everyone for logging on and listening, and obviously to our three speakers. Thank you so much for the great insights and sharing your knowledge and shared experiences. I think big takeaway from this is, stop looking at quiet quitting as a negative thing, and it's on the company and employer branding and setting expectations and boundaries that everyone's aligned on to stop the negativity around the topic, I think. Thank you all
very much for your interest.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, you guys too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.